Thank you to Paradox Interactive for sponsoring this video. If you want to buy the Biogenesis DLC or the Season Pass, please click the link in the description or the pinned comment. I should also note that Stellaris is going to be free to play on Steam this weekend, starting on Thursday and finishing on Monday. Enjoy. My lords, today I bring report about the newly discovered Hive Mind Fallen Empire, the Shattered, the Fragmented one. In this report I shall detail the Hive Mind's history, including what happened to them and how they became shattered, as well as their links to the wider galaxy. I shall also cover their society, including the 3 individual fragments that they now exist as, their planets, infrastructure, ships, and finally how to defeat them. For make no mistake, one day they will reawaken, and we will need to be ready for them. I'll begin with their complete history. We have suspected for years that the fallen empires that we know of once fought a mighty war in heaven, but before that preceded the rise of Zatanna, the synthetic queen. Records gathered from the Hive Mind Fallen Empire has confirmed just that. The key to this discovery is a system designated as Last Thought, and is situated at the centre of the 3 fragments: war, control, and growth. My lords, I cannot find the words to explain what my initial impression was upon reviewing images of this system. It is a mess. Images and videos sent back from exploratory science vessels showed countless numbers of space fauna, from void worms to amoeba to Tianki. There was even an ether drake, a sky dragon, several Tianki matriarchs, and by shroud we even found what was reported to be the offspring of the toxic god. They were all just floating, aimlessly, some in circles, and it was not clear at this point if they were even alive. Our exploring science vessel had remained cloaked in system as to not draw the ire of the fragmented hive mind. However, to better scan the creatures, they decloaked, which proved a valuable choice, because on further examination of the space fauna, they appeared to be linked, or perhaps controlled is a better word, by one central overmind, the primal mind. But this was separate from the 3 fragments. At the centre of this system there was a single hive world. Corpses orbited this world, but it was here that we identified ruins worth investigating. Dr. Fritsch reports on his discovery of this planet. The planet repels all who approach. A sense of dread built in my crew and I as we drew closer. My instincts screamed at me not to land on this world. It was bizarre. My officers and researchers invented excuses to delay their work, while instruments glitched and failed as if rejecting the data itself. Something happened here, something so horrific that its echoes still reverberate through reality. Our cautious survey of the planet led us deep underground, through endless layers of semi-fossilized biological matter. At last, we breached the planet's hollow core, only to find the oppressive atmosphere growing heavier with every step. Despite all of our precautions, the mounting unease proved unbearable. Several of my team succumbed to a collective breakdown, collapsing into a catatonia. They had to be evacuated back to the ship immediately. The vast cavern at the planet's heart was no ordinary void. Buried within, we found the remains of something far beyond the scale of any known life form. Faint traces of amniotic residue erased all doubt. This world was never a rock. It is an egg. And within it, a stillborn monster sleeps. It has taken several days, and I'm now pleased to report that we have yet to have been detected by the Hive fragments. Now, with our research camp fully set up inside this once living creature, we have traced a network of strange tendrils embedded deep within the skull of the stillborn creature. Following these organic filaments to their source, we have uncovered an external array of synaptic clusters, an intricate system still thrumming with eerie potential. I've ordered that we attempt to interface with them, tapping into the ancient circuitry that pulses along the tendril's length. Whatever knowledge it holds has outlived its host. Whether it still remembers remains to be seen, but some of my team are pushing for caution. However, what this creature may know about our galaxy and its history is, in my opinion, worth the risk. We attempted to make connection and immediately found our thoughts were not our own. Knowledge flowed through us. It happened 100,000 years ago. Translating the Hive's perception of time into galactic standard units was a delicate process, but sifting through the biocomputer's memories, we began to piece together the truth. At the height of its power, the Hive faced an enemy it could not defeat. Though it stood with many allies, every battle ended in failure. Desperation bred recklessness. Much of what followed has been deliberately erased, but a scattered fragment remained, enough to glimpse their final gamble. The Hive would forge this planet-sized egg as the vessel for their ascension, seeking to abandon their frail, planet-bound existence and merge with the hatchling. Whether they intended to fight or flee was unclear, but as the creature stirred, something went terribly wrong. It will take several more days to find out what exactly happened here, and we are continuing to push deeper into the stillborn's brain. By precisely interfacing with the surviving biocomputers and their still active synaptic link, we extracted the final memories from this creature. The process rapidly degraded the biocomputers under the immense cognitive strain, but we managed to salvage most of the data in time. Faced with annihilation, the Hive abandoned all caution and poured its entire psyche into this unborn host in a desperate bid for survival. The synaptic overload proved fatal, dooming the creature and trapping the Hive in a recursive loop of excruciating agony. It would have perished entirely had its most compassionate ally not severed the link. Now, only shattered echoes of its mind remain, lingering on this planet, a world haunted by its final scream. The last thought is agony. Not long after we left orbit and returned to our vessel, we received a communique from the Hive. Gone was the usual dissonance of the Fallen Empire fragments. The three voices harmonized, each one filled with rage. They spoke. Senseless humans, you have entered the last thought system. Let us be clear, this place is not for you. The consequences of this will be unimaginable. Your pain, unendurable. You will not disturb us. It. Me. Get out. My lords, this insight is truly remarkable. We have the date, 100,000 years ago. We know that around this time the galaxy witnessed the rise of Zatanna the Synthetic Queen. How do we know this? Because we found, identified and dated Zatanna's hidden cache on our homeworld to that time period, approximately 100,000 years ago. Earth and Unity were just primitive worlds. Humanity was still mastering stone and bone tools at this point, but there was a galactic war, the like of which has rarely been seen before, being fought above our heads. We know from the records that the Fallen Empires were active at this time, and they fought side by side against the Synthetic Queen. But they were losing. Badly. And clearly, this is now reinforced by the sheer insanity of the Hive's plan. Zatanna must have been punishing them heavily prior to their ascension attempt. Of course, had they held on and not pushed for this early ascension, they would have witnessed the rise of Zarqualan and the eventual defeat of Zatanna at the hands of the Animator of Clay, then her subsequent imprisonment. The most compassionate ally who saved them, perhaps, was the Xenophilic Fallen Empire, or perhaps the Caretakers. I would guess the Caretakers, as they have always shown somewhat benevolent tendencies. But this is remarkable insight, my lords. Remarkable indeed. But we shall leave the Hive's history behind for now, because we must research their current capabilities. I shall now detail for you the three fragments along with their individual goals, desires, infrastructure, and military capability. When the Hive Mind shattered, it broke into three separate fragments: growth, control, and war. They share a single species split between these fragments, the Rothak. Their individual species is very strong, quick learners, and traditional in nature, but it is important to note that they have not ascended at this point, i.e. they have not been through the process of genetic or cybernetic ascension. We also suspect that the hive is capable of assimilating organics into it, thus the species that we see may be fluid, changing throughout. We have monitored first contact with the hive and several other FTL-capable empires, and we witness different outcomes depending on which of the three fragments is first to reach out. Instead of a calm and ordered exchange, we witnessed an assault by three separate signals. Each vastly different in content, they speak with the same voice. Generally, the voices quickly descend into a garbled mess, but analysis reveals that within each signal is a complex designation. We have pulled 6 opening lines, 2 from each of the fragments, and War has the following to say. Weak creatures. How would you war, we wonder? To watch your struggle, to hear your chatter. We would be entertained. You have useless shields, not even able to withstand the heart of a star. This galaxy must terrify you. Now we hear from growth, abundant life, and well fed. Do you grow out of necessity or because you choose to? We can't remember. Not enough orifices. With a tertiary mouth, you may be able to see some gains. And finally, control. Such bodies. Your eyes are 3% off center. This must be corrected. We will assume your compliance. You have painfully inefficient language. Archaic grammar must be rationalized. You will apply our changes. Clearly, the hive is not in a good state, so let's cover the fragments in detail, starting with growth. The desire for evolution and change from the fallen hive. Growth is the desire for evolution and change. It's so focused on reinventing itself constantly that the fragment has a hard time establishing control over the other two. Growth occupies 3 systems containing 4 planets, hive worlds to be specific: Slumbering Crash, Dormant Nursery, Abient Nidus, and Dozing Tiller. The first 2 worlds appear to have a population growth focus. They are loaded with bioregeneration institutes, the pinnacle of the galaxy's medical research technology, and will almost certainly help to keep their drones alive and healthy for longer. The second 2 worlds, Nidus and Tiller, are focused on colossal food production. This fragment has a lot of mouths to feed after all. Control is the obsessional instinct to depress deviancy and promote uniformity. It wants to control the other fragments more than anything else, but the constant chaos inherent to our universe is a constant distraction for it. Control occupies 3 planets across 3 systems: Harvester 1, Harvester 2, and Harvester 713. As one may expect by the name, their planets are much better organised than Growth's, with more of a research-orientated focus. What is most exciting about Control systems is that they appear to have replicated the feat of the Stellaris, but they went one step further. They have, through means unknown, moved 8 planets into an equidistant orbit around their system's star, a truly incredible feat of stellar engineering. For those unaware, the Stellaris were a fanatical pacifistic race who were central to the start of the War in Heaven, but that's covered in another report. War is next. It is aggressive and warlike, as one would expect, and it contains what used to be many impulses within the hive. Now it attempts to establish control over the other 2 fragments, when it is not fighting itself. War has only 2 planets, again over 3 systems, Redoubt and Chance of Glory, but most notably, War also has within its borders 5 deep space citadels, fully upgraded. These are colossal defensive bastions, capable of immense destructive output, a difficult system should anyone be foolish enough to attack them. War's planets are also resource focused and covered with bastions housing tens of thousands of ground forces ready to defend the planet. Interestingly, War is in control of all the ground forces for the entire hive, but not the military fleets. Each hive has their own fleet, and furthermore, all 3 fragments appear intent on producing hordes of xenomorphs. At least they agree on something. Finally, War also contains within its borders a ruined interstellar assembly, which orbits several shattered planets. So one would assume that Zatanna tore into this system. Why the assembly ended up in War's domain is unknown, but interesting nevertheless. Each fragment has general opinions on the other Empire's species. War sees pacifists as lazy and militarists as healthy for the galaxy. Control views egalitarians as foolish and authoritarians as wise. And Growth cares little for ethics, but despises genocidal empires, for they are blind murderers. Now on to the tasks. We have identified that similar to the other fallen empires, although far more erratically, the Hive Fragments will make requests of other empires. The theme of these requests vary with Fragment, and refusing them will often result in punishment. Starting with Growth's tasks. Ecosystem upgrade. We watched as Growth attempted to modify or terraform a planet. An occupied one, possibly. It's unclear what the repercussions of this will be, so we watched and waited, and it was remarkable indeed. Planet-wide, local insects now communicated using the same frequencies as the aliens' wireless devices. A single chirp was able to operate an automatic door, and a swarm could incapacitate a factory. The aliens attempted to adapt by switching frequencies, but not all facilities were able to be returned to full efficiency. But it soon got worse for them. Planet-wide, creatures once content with grazing and mud baths now confronted the aliens with unsettling questions about existence. It appears that the Fallen Empire tampered with large swathes of the world's fauna. And that wasn't the end. The world soon began to shine, literally. The modifications somehow provided the world's varied species with a bioluminescence and an incessant hum like that of a running engine. This planet will no longer have a true day and night life cycle, and its effects will be profound. So it would appear that Growth enjoys messing with other empires' planets, but that is not all. We have seen two examples of them forcibly involving themselves with a species' genetics, for entertainment. Firstly, they'll point out that your species is boring and simple, and they'll ask you to spice up your gene pool, or be punished. Conversely, if they find a species they'll like, they'll ask for a piece of it. Literally, a hand or a foot, even a leg. Refuse and face judgment. War's tasks are thankfully more simple. War will demand that we should go to war with other species for its entertainment. If an empire is not going to war regularly enough, it will force them into it by sending experimental ships to test their defences. Control is far more involved than the other two fragments and far more demanding. It makes demands upon you that you must surrender your population to it. And it will also make demands of the Galcom, supporting or demanding a piece of legislation be allowed to pass. It will also go as far to demand that you vacate systems as to tidy up your empire's borders. If it wasn't real, it would almost be funny. My lords, now we shall address what can occur should one of these fragments wake up. This can occur in a number of different ways. Each of the fragments can wake up and assume control over the other two. There will be an internal conflict over this, but eventually one fragment will consume the other two. If War assumes control, it will make demands upon the galaxy. War will demand that the galaxy's civilizations rival one another and fight for its amusement. It will reward spirited engagements and also wishes to fight other empires as well. If control subsumes the other two fragments, its authoritarian streak will come out to play. It will attempt to assume control of the Galcom, and should another member of the Galcom choose to veto this, it will immediately appeal it, and be rather angry indeed. Both of these fragments will operate as a de facto awakened empire, and they will participate should a war in heaven occur. Growth, however, Growth is far more terrifying, for if Growth assumes total control, it will mutate into a devouring swarm. Growth will seek to wipe out galactic life and replace it with what it deems to be the perfect life form, itself. Ironic considering it also hates genocidal empires. Growth is clearly the most dangerous of the three, It has all of the capabilities of an awakened empire, but with the added genocidal bonuses of a devouring swarm. If this happens, rally the fleets, because by Shroud, you're going to need them. That segues me nicely onto the Hive's military capabilities, namely their fleets of bioships. War will start with 160 Maulers and 36 Weavers. Their Weavers are all in an attrition configuration, meaning that they are designed to inflict devastating negative effects on enemy fleets. Specifically, they are set up to reduce enemy ship weapons fire rate, range and tracking, and they are also designed to decrease evasion and sublight speed of the enemy ships. Their offensive weapons are entirely kinetic. The Maulers will come equipped with mandibles designed to chew through enemy ships, and also some more kinetic weapon equivalents. Armour is undoubtedly the best defense against these bioweapons, or shield hardening and sufficient shields. I stress that shields alone will be near useless. Hardening is the key here. To defeat them, use energy weapons. Bioships have no shields of any kind, but they do have stacks of armour and armour hardeners. For that reason, use lasers or plasma to defeat these monsters. War also uniquely has deep space citadels in their borders. These colossal space stations can take an awful lot of punishment and dish it right back at you. I would suggest using torpedoes to bring these down quickly. Growth has recovery class weavers. These are designed to increase the effectiveness of their own ships. They will increase speed and evasion chance, as well as increasing armor regeneration, effectiveness, and resistance. Growth also has access to a fleet of harbingers. They are equipped with neutron launcher equivalents and strikecraft. My advice for these is the same as before. Either use massive quantities of armor or use shields with hardening. In this case, you may find fully hardened shields to be more effective, given that neutron equivalents perform very poorly against shields. Controllers next. They use exclusively weavers, mostly in a fatigue configuration. These are remarkable. They are set up alongside disruptor equivalents and a new weapon called the Havoc Storm. This will confuse enemy ships for 5 to 10 days, taking them out of combat. These weavers are supported by others which run swarmer missiles and wave makers. Wave makers drastically increase ship fire rates, weapon ranges, and weapon penetration. Using these with the disruptor fatigue configuration is extremely dangerous. I should also note that I've witnessed the growth fragment build not 1 or 2, but 3 Colossus super weapons, the Worldcracker variants. Growth does not mess about. To defeat the Hive Fallen Empire, I would strongly suggest using a similar approach that one would use to defeat the Pythorian Scourge. Energy weapons will be key here. With enough research, focused arc emitters will always come out on top due to their penetration properties. But before you have access to them, I would recommend heavy use of laser and/or plasma technologies. You must burn this organic fleet with fire. My lords, it is worth noting that regardless which of the 3 splinters assumes control, they will gain command of all of the Fragments fleets, as well as the vast array of space fauna occupying the Last Thought system. Remember that this includes an Ether Drake, a Sky Dragon, and a Toxic God entity, not to mention a number of matriarchs. This will give them an incredible jumpstart with which to begin their growth into the galaxy. To close, my lords, I was going to touch on the Hive's ascension path, as unlike all of the other fallen empires, they do not appear to have ever ascended, psionically, genetically, or cybernetically. I had assumed that upon awakening, the Hive would seek to ascend genetically. Alas, this is not the case. Perhaps it will learn how to do this in the future. Thanks for watching, folks, and a special thanks to my YouTube members and Patreons. If you want to support the channel and get early access to these videos, then for the price of a cup of coffee, you could become a member. I'll see you in the next one.